Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rinkus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 3-episode series with April McNamara, who is the owner of Functional Living with April, based out of Appleton, Wisconsin. Through her business, April specializes in providing in-home services to help families let go of clutter and simplify their homes. She also offers community workshops and classes to teach strategies on how to make a home more functional and supportive. April believes that our homes are more than just walls, they are an extension of us, and having a home that is both fun and organized can help make it easier to recharge, allowing us to have more time to do the things that we want and need to do. April's love of art also blends into her personal life, as she loves painting murals and doing crafts with her son, nieces, and nephews. She also enjoys ballroom dancing, traveling, trying new foods, and spending time in the woods with her husband and son. In our first episode together, April gives great perspectives and tips that can be applied to anyone. And then in episode 2, we zero in on how to keep a home with kids less chaotic and more manageable. And then finally, in episode 3, we talk about how we can help some older adults, maybe the more retired age, or even just empty nesters that we love, to live safely and joyfully in their homes long term. We're excited to share April's expertise and enthusiasm with you, so let's get started with today's conversation. Hey everyone, welcome back. This is episode 3 with April, and we are so excited to have you back today, April. Thanks for coming again.
Thank you.
In this episode, we're going to be talking more so to those who are either like retiree age or maybe empty nesters, maybe even the older population, just how to create a home that is functional and supportive because our seasons of life change. So in our prior episode, we talked a little bit more so to the people that have kids living in their homes and are bringing in, the arts and crafts and a little bit extra clutter that way. But as you're reaching different seasons of life, things change. But I think something that you have some personal experience with is something called the sandwich generation. Can you share with us a little bit about what that means and what your experience with it is?
Sure. So the sandwich generation refers to people who are caring for their children as well as maybe helping to care for their parents. And that might look a little different in different stages. You know, it could be like the earlier stages in the beginning, like maybe mom and dad are having health issues and you're providing a little extra support. Maybe it's something like bringing meals over or helping them with doctor's appointments, all the way on up to like maybe your loved one is living in your home with you and you're helping to care for like their physical needs as well.
Okay. Yeah. And that's helpful. And I actually do have a stat here. According to Mental Health America, 23% of adults are living in the sandwich generation. And I think that means like actively living in it, where they're helping to care for those parents as well. And that can be really stressful to a parent. And especially as adults, when we're caring for young and older, still finding time to care for ourselves. Do you have any tips for people that are living in that generation?
I think one of the things that can be really helpful is oftentimes mom is the one who is the caregiver in the family. I do think, when I think of caregiver, I think of people caring for others. And oftentimes mom is usually like the steady person to help care for her children, as well as, later in life helping to care for her parents, or, maybe it's a sibling even, or later in life. And I have found that if you are able to practice self-care and be, the sense of self-regulation, or be able to care for your needs, you are better able to show up and be there for your children and for your parents and those who are in need of you. I know that I feel like this saying is often overutilized right now, but you cannot pour from an empty cup, or what's within your cup spills out. And if you are feeling stressed out and overwhelmed, you tend to be less patient.
Well, and that's where so many of your services come into play, even for those who are not, in the retired age yet, because if we can have our homes in a functional and supportive place, right, where we're not feeling chaotic within our own homes, we then have more energy to give to others. So establishing these routines and systems and changes in our own homes that you've been talking about through all of these episodes, that can be really important if you set yourself up well for the future season changes. So if we're going to talk a little bit more about empty nesters, retired adults, things like that, when you're coming in to help someone in that more age time frame, does the function look any different than when you're coming into a home with kids?
That's an interesting question. I think it does a little bit. We still may focus on a similar process, but a person's needs may vary depending on the season of life that they're in. So oftentimes when people are, a little bit older, or maybe they just retired and they're thinking about the next chapter in life, maybe they've had say, a 3-bedroom home, and now they're no longer needing the 2 other bedrooms as much, looking at how to utilize the space a little bit differently, as well as thinking about, what are their goals, or what are their things that they want to be doing, in this season. I think that it also is dependent on, a person's individuality. I feel like home is a really individualized thing, your definition of home might be different than mine. And I think really trying to meet the person where they're at can help guide that process.
For sure. And do you, this is going to be more so for the older population, more the seniors level, but do you also help with assessing their home and how their rooms are set up for safety?
So I guess I think of it as, in a way, it's not a full-on home safety evaluation. It's more of being kind of proactive on things and trying to make it more functional for that person. So if that person is maybe having some mobility and balance difficulties, and they have all these cluster piles everywhere, and it's making navigating in their home a little bit harder because they're literally tripping over their things, or maybe tripping over throw rugs or those types of things, I may mention some of that within this process, because it is impacting that person's overall function and
it's things that they may not think about, that throw rug's always been there.
Yes.
But now they're kind of tripping on it.
Yeah, and things that have been in places for a long time tend to start camouflaging. We don't even notice them anymore.
Yes. When when you live for such a long time, you kind of acquire things throughout the years. And yes, it, like you said, camouflage in plain sight.
For sure.
Yes.
And I know that you also talk about, you have your top 10 living in place themes.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Okay. So the story behind that, I was feeling overwhelmed during a season of life, during pandemic. My son was little, and mom and dad were having health issues, and I was worried about them. I know that they want to be able to live in their homes as long as possible, and I want to help them with that. And so I kind of delved into research, and there's this concept called aging in place. And the idea with that is to be able to live in your home as long as possible, aging gracefully. And so I had put out this question in social media land. One was to the sandwich generation, so people who were caring for their children and caring for their parents. And then the other was to the in-home occupational, physical, and speech therapist. And I asked this question. I said, knowing what you know today, what tips or strategies do you recommend in order to be able to live in your home as long as possible while aging gracefully? And I was pretty surprised because I had over 250 responses. And the researcher side of me was thinking, wow, this is a lot of information. This is a lot of data. I need to do something with this. And also just to have it make sense in my own brain and to know how can I help be supportive of my family? And so I categorized it. I noticed that there were themes, and I created top 10 themes. And do you know what the top 3 were? So number one was accessibility. And that really focused on the physical aspects of the home. So looking at being able to get into your home, being able to navigate like through the doorways, being able to reach into like cabinets. There was a lot of like also bathroom safety was a big thing in there. And when I started to kind of learn a little bit more of that as well, I came across a statistic that talked about less than 5% of US homes have accessibility features. And I was like, holy cow. And then this like went into this other area that I'm really passionate about is called universal design. And that's really the design of spaces and products to help support and fulfill as many needs as possible. So, if we can start to apply that into our homes, thinking about this ability to be able to live in our homes for as long as possible, and to have it be safe and functional, regardless of what age or season you're in. Another example of universal design is, when you walk into a grocery store, those automatic doors that open up. So that's an example of universal design. So that can be really beneficial for someone who's using a walker, someone who's using a wheelchair, someone who's pushing a grocery cart, someone who's pushing a stroller, someone who's carrying a whole bunch of boxes. It's not separating me like, oh, you have a disability or you're older, you use this doorway, and oh, you use this doorway. No, it's helping to support as many needs as possible.
I could see that even in the building industry, how awesome that would be just to have wider hallways or like less stairs or wider stairs, things like that.
Yeah. And kind of going on with it and related to the homes, one of the things that people have found really beneficial is making sure that you have your bed, bath, and laundry on the main floor.
Sure.
Because stair navigation can be a little bit harder. And really, this could be something that could happen anytime in life.
I was going to say, if somebody gets in an accident, or if your kid, if you break your leg and you have to, you can't go climb the stairs for 8 weeks or whatever it is, that's challenging. So having that ready to go.
Yeah. And so then related to this was the second area, and that was called safety. And there's a little bit of overlap, but this also went into more specifics on things like features of the bathroom, grab bars into the shower or a walk-in shower. I think there's room for individuality as well with this, depending on kind of what is comfortable for the family and, their abilities as well, but also kind of planning ahead. And then also looking at security systems and safety from that standpoint, as well as ways to, how do you call for help if you needed to? And then the third area was decluttering. And I just thought that was really interesting. And then when I started to think about it a little bit more, how much decluttering impacts both safety and accessibility in our home. And then when I started to think about it a little bit more and realizing kind of in my season of life, and it was becoming as a mom, that this isn't about age. It's really about helping to make home a functional and supportive place throughout the different seasons in life, what I call living in place. And it just is something that I just get really excited about. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then you also wrote a blog on this, right?
Yes.
For the top 10. So if people want to dive into all of them or just read a little bit more about them, how would they find that blog article?
Oh, if you go to my website, functionalliving.life, I have a blog and it's all out there. So
perfect. Maybe we'll grab that specific link and put that in the show notes as well. You were just talking about a little, with some of the older adults, you talk about with all of what you do, the function, the simplify, and the let go. So if we focus more on the function piece, and I know that you always pull out the FUN for the fun part, right? When you're looking at a home where there's no more kids, right? So maybe a little bit less clutter in some ways, but we all have our own. We all have our own clutter. Yeah. What do you typically see on how do you bring fun or joy into an older adult home?
I think a big part of this is community. And I think that's another area that I just find really important, especially, honestly, throughout all the different seasons of life, when you think of motherhood, but even later in life too. When you start to get older, your friends start dying, and loved ones, and kind of that can be really hard, that whole grieving process. And I know one of the things I really connected with different resources in the community, and one of them is the Thompson Community Center. And they seriously, when my friends turn 50, I get them all a membership.
Oh,
or
boy.
a membership application and be like, you guys, and they're building a new, they're going to be renovating a new space. So there's going to be like a pickleball court, but they're going to have like a whole art area where you can do crafts and things. And
Cool. Neat.
it is like a revolving door when I go in there, and I've taught some classes there, but like, it's a really great way to connect with people and to try different things to learn a new skill. And I think that's so important in humanity, to have like the sense of meaning in our life and also connecting with others. So I really try to help bridge, some of the gaps in our current like healthcare systems, and try to find different ways that people can connect with others, because I think that's important as well.
Yeah, and I actually love that answer a lot. I mean, bringing joy into your home may not have anything to do with your things. It may be bringing people into your home to bring that joy, right?
Sure.
I mean, I think of my husband's grandma. We joke with her all the time because she's in so many card clubs, and she just has such a busy social life that when we call her and we're like, hey, can we come visit you? We're like, you're probably busy, but she does such a good job with this of opening her home and bringing that joy in that way. So that's such a good perspective too. What about the let go piece? I feel like when we think of, especially our grandparents, maybe even parents, a lot of the older generation, they've just had more experience and more time to collect things that might be sentimental to them. So we talked about the container concept in the prior episode, but when I think of an older generation, they often tend to just have more stuff. So do you have a different approach on when they do have a lot more things because they are sentimental and they mean a lot?
I think, and each person is different. So I really try to meet the person where they're at, and when you're first starting out kind of going through this process, and I think about like when I was going through this process, I had too big of a home and too many things. And this was my husband and I had met, and this was before we were married, but we were wanting to move into having one household. And when you have a whole lot of things, I remember when the realtor went through my home and suggested that I maybe pare down on some of my knickknacks, I was offended.
Oh,
and it's just really funny now, like how I've like, oh, I get what she was saying, but I wasn't ready to hear it then.
yeah.
And I think if we can approach it from a place of compassion and trying to meet the person where they're at, I think that can really be helpful in this journey, because it's hard to get started. But once you do get started, it's like you're working out that decluttering muscle, or that muscle, you're getting stronger. You're like, that's kind of nice. Now I can use this space. I can actually sit in my chair now. I can actually find the clothes that fit me that I want to wear, versus having to dig through these piles of the stuff that, maybe doesn't fit. And then you start going through that. You're like, ugh, I can't wear that anymore. I could back in the day. I think that's the other thing too, when working with people in, later seasons of life, like, we tend to reminisce a lot, and sometimes things that we used to be able to do but we're not able to anymore, sometimes we may hold on to the things that are related to that. And that can be a little bit harder too. So I think trying to maybe open up the doors to maybe some new adventures, like just because you're in this season of life doesn't mean we can't learn new things or, meet new friends, but I recognize change is hard. So, and that reminds me of, there was this quote that I had attended this course one year, many, many years ago. And this quote just always stuck in my mind. I wish I knew who said it, but so advice given without permission is taken as criticism. And so I really try to approach it from sometimes just asking, like, do you want help in this area? Or are you ready for this? Would you like some suggestions on this, instead of just jumping in? And sometimes like the fixer side of me, or like the caregiver side of me, I want to like come and help and do all the things. And I even think of this in my own relationships. I have to take a step back and be like, is this a time where you just want to talk about it and I need to listen? Or is this a time where you're ready for some changes and you want suggestions? Because I'm still learning with that and learning and growing, but that quote has really helped to kind of keep me grounded in that area.
And I feel like that's what makes you so good at what you do, and also so unique, because we talked about in episode 1 how what you do is so much more than like coming in and helping somebody organize or declutter. Like that can really just stress somebody out, the declutter piece. But you're here to like walk with these people and really find out where their hearts are at and where their minds are at and what helps them to feel uniquely them.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think everything that you're saying is just incredible. And I love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
Can you walk us through what it looks like to actually work with you? We've talked about some of the different awesome ways that people can connect with you. You have a YouTube show essentially where you're interviewing other people in the community. You also have workshops. But if someone is interested in you coming in and helping them within their own home, what does this journey actually look like?
Sure. So when I go to someone's home, usually we'll go through a questionnaire. So to really help with understanding like what is it that you value, what's important to you, what do you need to do, what do you want to do, and really focusing on, okay, what are the big areas that are stressing you out right now, and where to start first, because rarely is it just one room. Usually it's throughout the whole home. But it's really neat when working with someone, like when they're ready to go, like, oh, I love it. When they're ready to go, like you start in one area and then like they just keep going and working in other areas, and how it has this ripple effect in the home and in the community. But yeah, I sit down with the person and we go through this questionnaire, and then we get started. We try to do as much as we can within that couple of hours on the first initial consult in the home. And then from that point, it's really individualized to the person. So we'll kind of customize a package and design it for what that person is wanting or needing. So some people need a little bit more support in the beginning. So maybe we're meeting like weekly to kind of really address some of these routines and really getting into establishing systems and helping with the letting go process. And then other people are like, oh, I just needed a system. All right, I'm good, and then they're good to go. And then they may reach out to me 6 months later, be like, okay, I need a little tweak here. Or maybe it's like this combination. I have explored trying a hybrid model where in person helping with the stuff, and then maybe check-ins, like either phone or virtual meetings to check in, hey, how's it going? Helping a person to come up with goals, or just kind of, like an accountability partner.
Oh, and I feel like a lot of what you do is also like helping them with their mindset, right? And just helping them mentally figure out what is best for them. And I'm assuming that they are highly involved in this entire process.
Yes,
everything that's getting moved, shifted. Like this is not something where if you were like just coming in to organize their pantry and they were like heading out to work and they'd be like, goodbye, thank you for your services. Yeah. No, this is like you are highly involved, and they are highly involved in every single decision, and you are just really checking in with them and doing this journey with them.
Yes, it is definitely a collaborative process.
Awesome. Thank you so much for what you're doing for our community, April. We really enjoyed having you on the podcast. And if you guys did not go back and listen to episodes 1 and 2, make sure that you do that, because they are gold. And I have a feeling you have somebody in your life who could very much benefit from those episodes as well. Thank you, April. Can you remind us how people can contact you?
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me at functionalliving.life.
Perfect. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review, or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.